Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's session Network Security Essentials to Help You Grow. Our speaker for the session, Mr. Oriyomi Fowler, Head Information Security and Network Operations, Dangote Group. Please note the session will be in listen only mode and will last for 40 minutes, out of which 10 minutes will be dedicated to Q&A. I request all the participants to post your questions in the Q&A window. Should you need any assistance during the session, please use the chat box. Also, we do have two criteria for certification. Participants needs to attend the complete webinar, and participant needs to fill the survey and the right answer to the three questions based on the webinar, which will be sent to you one day post the webinar. About our speaker, Mr. Oriyomi Fowler is responsible for the network services technology, risk management, information protection, and security assurance of largest conglomerate in Africa, with assets of over $15 billion. Prior to joining Dangote Group in 2016, he held leadership positions within a number of technology service organizations, ranging from system integrator to major internet service provider firms. So without any further ado, I would now hand over the session to you, Mr. Oriyomi.
Hi, Richard. Thank you so much for the brief introduction. Really do appreciate it. Thanks, everyone, for joining in on today's webinar. As she has said, Network Security Essentials to help you grow as an organization and as an individual. So I will start my presentation by telling you who I am and what I've done in the last few years. So as she said, I currently head the Information Security and Network Operations team at Dangote Group, where I'm responsible for network services, technology, risk management, and information protection for the largest conglomerate in Africa. Quite a taxing job. I'm also, responsible for Dangote Refinery project, single train project within technology space also. I'm a member of the AC Council Global Advisory Board for Network Security and also an ICT subcommittee member of one of the greatest clubs in Nigeria. So I do have over 13 years experience that landscape within technology firm, system integrator, an enterprise, and then ISP. So I have quite a number of certificates that pertains to information security, and few have been mentioned within my screen that you could see in this presentation. And the latest is the cybersecurity managing risks for information age that I went through in Harvard. Quite an informative course. I'll share some tricks and tips that I learned from that in this presentation. So the major takeaways that you're going to take away from this presentation would be, understanding the challenges of the network security, understanding how it varies, network security varies from different sectors, health sector, FMCG, and the BFSI, that's financial sector. Working on basis to prevent threats to your organization, the popular standards that have to do with network or information security, and then recommended readings for young, mid-level, or even senior engineers or managers out there. So our agenda is in 9 sections. So within 40 minutes, I hope I'm able to, demystify or dissect this agenda, which has to do with network security, component of network security, network security in the cloud era. I'll touch a little bit on that, and then challenges of network security, standards, as I mentioned, how you can grow as an individual and as an organization, and then network security knowledge gap stroke map, and then recommended readings, and then question and answer, as Richard said at the beginning of the presentation. So network security, what is network security? So quite a number of times I get to be asked these questions, either about webinars or about coaching or about discussing with few of my colleagues, and I realize this is a major thing that people need to understand. There's a thin difference between information security and network security. So network security, is the process of strategizing a defensive approach to secure your data resources over a computer network infrastructure against potential threats or unauthorized access. So practically, this is what it is when people say network security. what you're trying to do is you're trying to protect your data, your resources from potential threats and unauthorized access, using softwares, hardwares, and the likes to form defense. And then why network security? Why is it important? Why do people have to do network security? Most organizations today greatly rely on network, computer networks. Last year really showed that almost every organization, it is key for you to have, your organization digitalized. You need to, work mostly from home. People are now, using quite a number of things to connect from home, work from home. Remote work is now like a norm everywhere else in the world because of the pandemic. So that's enough to show that there's a need to actually secure your communication between your connection at home and to the organization, because most organizations rely on computer network to share information and to be productive. And as of today, we're doing this webinar, remotely, and everybody is connected remotely, as against back in 2009 and 2008, where we had to have a conference and people would all like to fly in so that we could at least pass 40 minutes message. So, and how? So implementing network security systems can be effective in protecting your computers, either from physical harm or from safeguarding your machines against virus, spyware, or external threats. External threats falls within different categories, as you know. So this is the component. So I'm going into components of network security. So when we say network security, sometimes people just think it's just about router and switches or just about the equipment. So what I've done here is I've tried to, show you every component that is required in the network security. So, and what you need to do in terms of protecting it, I would, go over that within the next few slides. So one of the major things is access control. So when you talk about access control, what you're saying is who have access to your resources. So for instance, I come to your home and I visit, do I have access to your network? Can I just jump on your Wi-Fi and I'm able to access every other computer in your home? Or can I come to your office and I plug my laptop to a cable and then I'm able to access every other thing in your enterprise? So access control, who have access to what? And antivirus, anti-malware software. There are quite a number of antivirus and anti-malware software. I won't be mentioning quite a number of names because we wouldn't stop if we go that route. Because most of the viruses that we've seen out there happens as a form of malware. So they come into your system as a form of malware, and from there you get ransomware and you get the other type of attack that are out there and they're common. So the next one is application security. So there are quite a number of applications that we all have. We have quite a number of now personal computers, work computers, mobile phones, and the likes. It is the network security responsibility to ensure that the application is secure. Because if the application is not secured, the application is being accessed over the network. So people need to be sure of the security level, of the nature of the application that they're accessing. Next one is behavior analytics. Within network security, what you do with behavior analytics is, so I'll give myself as an example. Let me say in the last 5-10 years I've been working, and let me say 6 years I've been working in Dangote. I've never probably visited the US to actually check my email. And then all of a sudden you see a pattern that says you're being logged in from the US, whereas you know that your me is in Nigeria. So you need this kind of thing to be able to predict. So what you're doing is, I understand the user's pattern. I understand that what my user do is they check in terms of behavior. This is what he does regularly. And then when you see something off, you are able to pick that and then translate that to a security alert or a security threat, or do something about the user. Then the next thing is data prevention, data loss prevention. So there are quite a number of things that could cause data loss prevention. Some of these are interwoven. As of today, you could have, that you could lose your data because of access control. You could lose your data because of malware, ransomware, and the likes. And then, data loss prevention, it's a key thing, because your organization work with data. It's from a set of data that they make an information. So it is critical that the data, secret of an organization, of an individual, is kept secret. Next one I'll talk about is email security. We've noticed quite a number of times, in short, the biggest threat to the world right now is phishing, and that's the major way people are, getting hacked. Where you get random emails that says click this email, click this link to either win a bonanza, or click this link to change your password, unsolicited email. So when you click the link and then you put in your email username and password, you get your email account get compromised, and then from there the user can actually do any other thing with your email account and then with your enterprise-wide domain, and then phishing accounts fish the whole enterprise, and then there are issues. Next angle is firewall. So what you do with firewall, there are quite a number of things you could do with firewall. So you could either use it to do DMZ, which is the internal segmentation, or you also use it at the edge, which means you're protecting whatever is coming into your organization or your home, or and whatever is going out. In some situations, we see quite a number of people that have firewalls in their home. For example, I do have firewalls in my home where I use it to prevent whatever my kids are watching or whatever they could do online. And at the same time, I'm using it to protect my assets, my data, and every other thing I do have within my home network. Intrusion prevention. So intrusion prevention systems are systems that helps you to actually prevent an incident. So I'll give you an example. Someone has been trying to log into your device for quite a while, let me say in the last 30 minutes. And intrusion prevention, what it does, it checks the traffic and is able to detect that this traffic is actually malicious and then block it. It prevents it from happening. It doesn't allow it to happen and then notify you. And then the other part of network security is VPN. We all must have been used to VPN by now with what the pandemic has caused. Virtual private network where everyone could, either connect from your branch to your branch, or you connect from your host to your individual to a network, or people also use it as a form of proxy. So you either use that to, act as a proxy. Maybe you have some equipment at home that you like to access, and then you VPN into your house network to be able to do that, as against allowing everything on your house network to be on the internet. Next thing, which I had mentioned briefly, was the mobile device security. A lot of times I do hear a lot of people say, oh, your mobile device are secured. You can never be hacked on a mobile device. Mobile device security is also a component of network security, because it is important, because every other thing you do from a mobile device is on the network. A lot of times we realize that our mobile devices are not as useful without network being on them, or without data, as some people would say. And next on the list is network segmentation. So network segmentation is where you use quite a number of tricks. I would say tricks in this slide because I wouldn't want to go into too much technicals. So quite a number of tricks like VLANs and the likes to segment your network within an enterprise or within your home. So for instance, I do have a Wi-Fi segmentation in my house, and I do have CCTV, and I do have every other thing. So those cannot talk to each other, because what I have done is to segment them from each other, so that your CCTV doesn't mean you could talk to my laptop and the likes. So anybody that comes to my house and I probably give you a guest Wi-Fi, you won't be able to actually view anything on the CCTV, because that network is segmented. Quite a number of enterprises implement this to ensure that they are able to actually differentiate a voice network and then LAN network, and then network for servers, so that you could easily partition and monitor and then manage. So network segmentation is very key in any network security and any organization. And the next on the list is SIEM. When you say SIEM is what is SIEM? So SIEM is a log management and event management system where you actually identify you set up some set of rules identify your logs, and is able to make some analytical decision based on what your logs are. So for instance, I gave an instance of me trying to log in from the US. And SIEM will flag that as not a normal thing, gives it that a warning that, oh, your mail is logging in from this. This is out of ordinary. This is unusual. And then that automatically, raise an alert or raise a flag to whoever is monitoring the system at that moment. And then they can act on that. Collect all the logs concerning email, access control, application security, behavior analytics, data loss, all in one dashboard, and then you can make an informed decision right on. You could actually trace a user across the organization within an SIEM, whether the guy is using VPN or is sending emails or emails being compromised. The next one is web security. So we do have quite a number of times where people go to websites and they get notified that it's not secured. Like HTTP or HTTPS. HTTP is not, it's not encrypted. Your traffic back and forth is not encrypted, which, quite a number of new browsers now would flag that as a non-conformity and then ask you that you still want to proceed, which means if you put in your username and password for those kind of websites, it means anybody within the network can actually sniff your traffic and see your username and password because it is in plain text and it's going over the wire. So, but if you're using HTTPS, for instance, that won't happen because it is encrypted from your browser end to the server or the web servers that is receiving the web application. So for the web security also, there are quite a number of other things that are important in web security. And the website itself, coding of the website. A lot of times I hear people say, oh, network security, you don't have anything to do with applications. But you do have a lot to do with applications because the application sits on the network. So, secure coding and things like that are very also are key things that are important in web security. The next, but not the least, is wireless security. So we do have quite a number of wireless standards out there where people use public, open, and the likes. And then people use WPA2, people use normal WPA or WEP. Quite a number of them are not secure. The most secure as of today is still the WPA2. That could change in the next few months because, there are quite a number of draft and standards approval that are pending already. And then there's new Wi-Fi, you hear Wi-Fi 6 and things like that. So the different level of security would have to match the new product or the new technology that is out there. But as of today, the WPA2 is still the most secure and more difficult to hack. So really nothing is everly 99 or 100% secure until it gets tested. So the next slide, I'm talking about briefly about network security in the cloud era. So moving from on-prem to cloud, people have always been looking at this as, oh, you probably will not need a network security any longer. But what is a cloud? What is the cloud? What are you doing when you move to the cloud? Most of the businesses are out there are moving to the cloud, cloud computing, because it helps transform the way the business reacts to changes. It makes business more efficient, and it's in quotes cost effective because it depends on organization or the business case. Quite a number of organizations, I would say the SMEs and the likes, cloud is probably the best solution for you because it's cheaper. You don't have to run anything 24 hours. You don't have to have anything on your premises. And then, people that about physical security and things like that. But, for bigger enterprise, like the likes of Microsoft, Google, and the likes, or Dangote, as the case may be, power is not an issue because your operation is 24 hours. Physical security also is not an issue because, you do have physical security. So, you have to consider most of those things before making a decision. But don't let me go too much into, cloud and what is cloud. But network as a whole, what is happening network in cloud is when you move from on-prem to cloud, the network has, functionality has not left because for your servers to communicate within the cloud is via network. The only difference is there's not a GUI where you could at least go and create your rules, create VLANs, do your DHCP, your DNS, and things like that. And every other component that I discussed in previous slides also goes with cloud. So because you subscribe to a cloud service does not mean you're not going to do data loss prevention. Does not mean you'll not be bothered about denial of service. Does not mean you'll not be bothered about anti-malware and access control, because you don't want every other person out there to be able to have access to your resources in the cloud. So whether you're on-prem or you're in the cloud, network security is an important essential. It's very essential to every organization. Next slide, I'll highlight a little bit about network security challenges, and then I'll tell you how you could approach or you could resolve most of those issues. So there are 6 key challenges for network security. One of it is lack of visibilities. A lot of times, you not being able to see a full life cycle of a user connection on the network is a major problem, because if you cannot identify that a user connected at so time and he accessed this at so time, is able to he went on to this building at so time and is able to access his email at so time. If you don't have visibility into traffic patterns and anything, you can't really secure. And as of today, globally, there's a report, I wouldn't quote in this, that says that about 45% of enterprise don't have visibility into what is happening within their network. And that's true, because quite a number of times we focus on either different products that would not give us that visibility. But visibility is a very, very, very big challenge, and it's one of the things that, as of today, everybody else is trying to solve. There are quite a number of products that answers or approach and gives you an hint on how to solve lack of visibility. And then if you look at the components I mentioned earlier, there are quite a number of things there, like the SIEMs and the likes, that gives you a level of visibility. So, and it then depends on the types of SIEM products that you're using, and then that gives you more comfort if you could actually see your users' traffic, or you could see everything on your network in one span. The next thing is tool interoperability issues. So you have quite a number of tools that you need to ensure that the organization, the business is functioning. So you have quite a number of tools that cannot really work together. So that creates a problem for the administrator or for an enterprise in terms of how to bridge the gap, what to use when. So those are major issues that we need to really consider as organization or as network security engineers, to look at them and then demystify, like break them down and look at how to approach the tools interoperability issue. So whenever we are deciding on a product, we should be considering, can this product work with this other set of products, or potentially this other set of products, as against, so that we don't get either vendor locked in, or we don't have issues with tools talking to each other. Next thing is outdated controls. So, I've spoken to quite a number of people within the industry, and then it's one of the major issues where they think, okay, because you did an audit in 2009, the controls you had implemented in 2009 are still fine as at 2021. This is a major issue, because most of these controls are outdated, and that's why you even see standards getting reviewed. So you have a standard for something, it gets reviewed and updated. The reason why it's getting reviewed and updated is because of either the outdated controls or the outdated methodology that is being used. So controls can easily get outdated, and if we don't really track controls, they would get outdated without even knowing that controls are outdated. So this is a major key issue that exists within network security function. So lacks control of privileged access. It's a major issue. There are quite a number of products that addresses different aspects in this. You see privileged identity, privileged access management system. What they are all trying to do is to identify a user and then map it towards the access right that is needed. This also means that things around segregation of duty encompasses within the privileged access, which means as a server admin, I should not have access to, grant internet to my server. I should not have access to be able to, edit my database. I should not have access to be able to, copy out the information in database. Because if one person do have access to all that, it means that one user is a single point of failure. You could actually get compromised and from length and breadth of the organization because the user do have an access to that. And it's one of the major things that SMEs do encounter is because they probably would have just one or two IT of staffs and then expect them to cover the length and breadth of IT infrastructure landscape. That's a very, very big issue because at the end of the day, what you have is segregation of duties will not happen because they have a lot of things to cover. And then you could easily get compromised with just one user access being compromised. So it's always advisable for people to, implement the privileged identity management system or privileged access management system, depending on your infrastructure. So your infrastructure actually is a major reason why you should choose a product, either is a PIM or the PAM, and which of the brands. So your infrastructure, identifying your critical assets and know what you're protecting against is key. The next one is misconfiguration. Misconfiguration happens every other time because, as you know, people will say we are humans. So, but the only part that you could use to do this is to do continuous review and a proper chain management control process. So if you do have a proper chain management control process where, the user or whoever is making a change raises a change request where it covers the standard operation procedure, the configuration that the person is going to apply on either the server or the network equipment, where other team members are vetted. That would help, in managing misconfiguration purification. And one of the things people always overlook with change management is everybody believes, oh, when you just request for an approval and you get an approval, it's fine. But the details of what is going to be applied is very key because an engineer might overlook a configuration. Let's say adding a device. Let's say you want to deploy a switch. An engineer might overlook adding the switch from things like Telnet or SSH from public IPs and then not put that as part of the SOP. But whereas when it shares an SOP with full configuration, someone else would have picked it up and said, this is this, or your password is stored in plain text. So these are things that, challenges and then what could actually help us to manage those challenges. And then the last but not least is organizational culture. Globally, this is a major issue because organizational culture is something that we need to really look at and then dive in. Information security, cyber security, everybody talks about organizational culture because if your culture, the culture of the organization does not allow controls to be implemented, does not allow controls to be proposed, or does not push for the adoption of tools, the right tools, and the right staff strengths or the right staff to do jobs, the culture would not allow for a security conscious culture. There are some organizations that we've had whenever people are giving examples of cybersecurity issues where people would actually store their password in plain text and put it on a sticky note and put it on their laptop. That's because the organizational culture allows that. So organizational culture is a continuous thing, it's a continuous drive that every user or every network engineer or every CISO out there needs to continuously drive to work on to ensure that you don't lose guard, the organization does not lose guard. Every other product we buy out there will tell you they are not 100% foolproof that they will catch the next security. And that's why you have things like the zero-day attack and the likes. And the reason why they do this is because if your organizational culture does not, is not a secured culture, there is almost nothing a tool can do, because human factor is still the most essential part in network security. If the human gives his username and password away, then whether you have the best firewall or you have the best anti-malware solution or you have the best SIEM, they would, they practically won't do anything much than what the user have allowed. The organization will get breached. Next slide, we're talking a little bit about popular standards. Standards that have helped us to grow as professionals, that are, bodies that have come together to put in efforts and standards to tell us how to, or to educate us on how we should use the internet. And I've mentioned quite a number of IFCs during the end of presentation, so that you could see quite a number of technology or protocols that you hear out there, were being proposed by standards and then implemented, and then all OEMs then implement those standards. And at the end of the day, when they implement those standards according to the standard, interoperability issue would be less. So these are 4 major standards, and there are quite a number of others that are not in this presentation, which is the Internet Security. This one covers the IETF and then the IAB, Internet Architecture Board, and then Internet Engineering Task Force. The NIST, is a US federal agency that deals and measures on standards and technology to ensure that they promote and protect the US private sector and the government sectors. We have the ISOs. The ISO is one of the most popular body out there, because they also do talk about things that are not just security. And then we have the British standards, the BFSI, sorry. It's a national body, United Kingdom, where you ensures that all certificate standards as related to business, products, and services are, defined properly and then implemented in the right way. So if you buy products, so for instance, you're buying a product, and then you're asking what standards, certify what you bought or what you're doing. Quite a number of people wouldn't be able to, mention what standard that they're using. If you look at the ISO, for instance, ISO do have quite a number of standards that addresses information security, business continuity, cyber security, and also trains users in terms of what are the best things to do. And people and organization get certified against standards. Users also can be certified to be an implementer or an assessor. So next slide, we're talking about how those standards relate to different sectors of the organization. So if you look at the banking sector, there are quite a number of standards or quite a body that they have to meet into. So if you see the GDPR, which is globally known from like last 2 years concerning data privacy, NDPR, which is Nigerian owned, and then you have the POPI Act, which is for South Africa, affect clearly the banking sector. The PSI DSS as against what they're doing in banking sector, the SOX, then the ISO standards. Most of the banks actually implement the ISO standards because they have to do it. Customers' information, financial records, transactional information that are meant to be kept secret and just for the user. For the health sector do have the HIPAA, which is the major differentials between the health and the banking sector. The GDPR do apply to every organization. The NDPR or the POPI do apply to every organization within those areas that they are. The GDPR is for the European body, and then the NDPR, Nigeria, POPI, South Africa, as I've said. And ISO standards, quite a number of people get ISO standards, as I said, quality ISO standard for information security, And then the FMCG. The FMCG happens to be one of the least regulated sectors in terms of the required standards that they need to meet, and the required standards that they need to ensure that they are compliant with. But as usual, but organizations themselves can always decide to say, oh, we want to be certified against quality, we want to be certified against information security, we want to be certified against cyber security or business continuity, as the case may be. Business continuity is an essential for most of the investors. So quite a number of organizations would decide to have ISO standards because of business continuity and because of their investors, basically. So FMCG is the least regulated within these three sectors that I'm talking about in this presentation. The next slide will really focus on how to grow as an organization. So as an organization, as I mentioned in previous slide, culture is a major thing. Apart from the technicality, apart from what is required to be done technically, like things like patch management, which is part of controls, outdated control, centralized logs, which is SIEM indirectly, enforced change management and disaster recovery. Disaster recovery is like a business continuity, and then enforced change management. I mentioned enforced change management. I think I spent quite a number of time for change management. What is required to be done with change management? Change management is not just getting an approval or requesting for an approval. Change management is a whole lot, which has to do with the details of what the change you are implementing is going to do. What is the implication? The implication shouldn't just be about availability. Implication should be considered in the sense of information security, because there's some change that makes some information or some configuration for security outdated. So those lens has to be, considered. In most organizations, I'm one of the preachers for this. I always say, for change management control board to be complete, you need to have a security person inside. Where a security person needs to know that the implication of what one change is going to make to the organization. Implication of any change is maybe drastic. So it's important that you have the right set of people for a change management control board to enforce change management, and also have a disaster recovery so that you could address quite a number of things in terms of when your primary site goes off and things like that, or when you get attacked. So your DR could always save you. The next bit is zero trust strategy. Zero trust is one of the few things that people have been talking about, and pandemic has really raised the need for zero trust. Zero trust is a more secure, more robust strategy in terms of not trusting anything on your network, even after identifying a user. So you've identified a user to be legit, you've identified a user to be allowed to participate, you've allowed the user to be able to go to the internet. The next level is, what is the person viewing on the internet? Quite a number of people would say, oh no, NAC is a better approach, which is network access control. It's a better approach to security as against zero trust. But what NAC is just doing, identifying the user and the device. It's not going the extra length of identifying the traffic. Matching a user to the traffic. So for instance, a user that is allowed to only go to the internet is trying to play around your data center and seeing what they could snake from your data center. The zero trust strategy could actually identify and help you mitigate that. There are quite a number of products that do claim that they could do zero trust. I would say if you're opportune to implement this, you would need to really identify your critical asset and what is important to your organization before proposing which of the products or which of the OEM is best suited for you. Next one is monitoring user activity and behavioral trends. User activity and behavioral trend is very key. Although there's a thin line between that and then privacy. That's user privacy. So because quite a number of people will say, oh, what they are viewing is private to them and things like that. But what I've advised quite a number of people to ensure that is implemented is user access policy, which clearly identifies that, covers the ground that most of the things that you're accessing is actually for the organization whenever you're using the work tool or the organization network. So user activity monitoring is very key. It's a continuous effort. It doesn't end. It's 24 hours, 7 days, 1 year, forever activity for an organization to ensure that we keep ensuring that we're secure. Because if we lose grasp of a user trend or a user behavior, a user that have never visited any other site than work email and then probably collaboration website like Zoom and the likes, then get to be viewing news or contents that are illicit, you automatically know that there's a problem somewhere because this is not the user's trend. I did give an example of assuming I've never been able to access the company enterprise resources outside Nigeria for the last 5-6 years. The first day that I would access it outside Nigeria, if you're monitoring the user trend or the user activity behavior, you would immediately flag that. The SIEM that you have would flag that, provided that your SIEM that is being implemented to have user behavior analytics. Quite a number of SIEM don't have that. So you do implement an SIEM and then you realize that what Yomi said in his webinar is not there. It's because the SIEM you have does not have the user behavior analytics. So it is very key. Identify your critical assets, identify what you're protecting, and note it's not all vulnerabilities that are threat-worthy. So I would say that because quite a number of times people try to ensure that they close all vulnerabilities, because we can't really close all vulnerabilities. There are some vulnerabilities that are known, but you're not using them. So let me try and give an example in this situation. So there's a vulnerability to, let me say, an Android device. This is not true. I'm just giving that as an example. So let me say there's a vulnerability to an Android device, and you have an Android server in your enterprise. But the vulnerability says that if the Android is actually working with an IIS server, which is a web server, that is when the vulnerability can be exploited. Automatically, if you're not using IIS in conjunction with Android, you're not vulnerable to that. Because vulnerability exists does not necessarily mean that it's a threat to your own organization. It can be a threat to another organization, but to your organization it doesn't necessarily mean it's a threat, which is why it's critical you identify your assets, you know what you're protecting, and then it's easier for you to leverage on that and then build your defense mechanism. And the other part I'll talk about is culture. Culture. We cannot talk about culture enough because culture is very key. No matter what we've done on the left-hand side of presentation, which is technical, culture is key. That's continually do awareness training. Awareness training should be something that is required or recommended to be done probably every other quarter, probably every other month as you walk by banners, emails. Security should also be considered as a priority for senior management. Security should be considered as a priority to senior management because if you're not secure, your data, your company information is out there. No matter what we try to do on the left-hand side with technology, patching, centralized logs, and the likes, we can never really be secure. We won't cover grounds with that. So it is very key that we have the buy-in of senior management, and then they are part of it. They see security as an important thing. Hire the right people, hire the right set of minds. I'll be going about that a little bit in the next slide, where I'm going to talk about the personal traits and the kind of skill set that are required for a user or for an engineer. And then third-party benchmarking. It is very key to benchmark. Very, very key to benchmark. The next one is the programs and procedures. Within an organization, programs, procedures, processes should be security inclined. You don't have a procedure that is being printed and pasted everywhere where you can see people's username and password or people's phone numbers, emails, or personal information, personal verifiable information out there. So those processes and procedures need to be aligned with information security. Because if your email is being compromised, personal information is being compromised, they use an hacker or a black hat could easily have access to that and then use that against the organization. So how to grow as an individual? This is a little bit personal for me, because I do tell people, for anybody that is going to strive in network security field, so you either be the network security guy, or you either be a security guy that is just about controls, or you be the guy that can do both. You know, have the leg in, root in, understand each technology, understand each space, and then still able to, audit and do controls. That is very key. Look at personal traits, for instance. You have to be a continuous learner. Almost every other time you have to read about something, because there's something out there that is new. Every other time you attend webinars, you attend conferences, because they are very educative. That's where you understand, or you could relate to things that are probably happening within the organization. You have to be a persistent person. You want to get to the root of some of an issue. You want to get to you want to get an answer. You have to be a persistent person, because there are quite a number of times where you're trailing or you're trying to track a user's record. You could actually lose guard and lose focus and then get something else. The person has to be cerebral, truth insensitive, and then the person has to be emotional. The person has to be cerebral in terms of the person has to be intelligent. The person has to be able to process, and the person has to be able to reason. It's good for you to have someone that is a system thinker, someone that can analyze that this particular process that you have and look at the implications before you even implement the process. Those kind of team members are very key, because when you implement a process, you don't want to come back to the drawing table or the drawing board to realize that you've made a major mistake and then you're trying to patch it. Whoever you're using whoever is your network security professional have to be able to do that. And as a network security professional, you have to always, you have to have the system thinking. You have to have the desire, the awareness, and you have to be able to learn on the fly. Because there are quite a number of things that you learn on the fly, quite a number of solutions out there, quite a number of certifications out there, quite a number of training bodies, quite a number of standards. The number of standards that we have, right, when I do get to the recommended readings, there are things that it almost looks like you cannot finish them in a year, because they're quite a lot. So you need to be able to really get your hands on that. You have to be analytical. You have to be able to, see something and then communicate properly what you've seen. And then, you have to be curious at when you see things. And then, very important, you have to think like a bad person. So if I have the password of a user, if I'm a bad guy, what would I think about? How would I approach it? Well-rounded up skills, system thinkers, and skills attributes, as I mentioned. So skills attributes. I'm sure the presentations will be posted. So lack of time, let me go to the next slide. This is a knowledge map that I believe every network security engineer out there or professional should have. That key important things. You could see the legend. Important things, very important things, and there are normal things that you could just have a clear understanding about. You don't have to know deep dive. This map is very essential for people that are trying to change careers and people that are trying to go deep into network security. This slide is very key. I wouldn't want to spend more time to break this down, but this is very key. Server administration, server log management, public cloud or private cloud, network security, infrastructure as code. This is infrastructure as code is probably taking up a lot of things right now. And then you need to have a little bit of programming language competency. Recommended readings. So there are quite a number of RFCs, as I mentioned. This is for starters. There are quite a number of people that need to understand this technology at the minimum, because these standards define what the technology or what the standards is. This is where people are defining, domain names. How will domain name work? What do you need to do with domain name? What domain names communicate to? How important it is? Please, I would say, you should go through these standards, read them, so that they could help form a solid foundation. Or if you already made levels, you could still revise this so that they could help inform and then continue to grow. There are quite a number of certificates I would mention. EC Council do have quite a few that I'm mentioning here. Network Defender, Application Security, the Hacking Forensic, the Ethical Hacker, and then the Incident Handler. So these certifications would help you narrow most of what I've mentioned in the past in terms of application security, in terms of incident handling, in terms of network defense, and the likes. For this, I've come to the end of my presentation. Any questions and answer section now. So any questions will be appreciated. I don't know if the host would like to take over from this so that I could then answer any questions that have been asked. Thank you.